I was at home, I was thinking about work. I was never really present. And it came to a point where one day I realized my kids were quickly, they were changing and growing, and I seemed to be missing it.
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld. I have a good friend of mine, Robyn Robertson. Yeah, that's her real name. It's like a famous, sounds like a Hollywood name. We've got
Robertson.
Robyn Robertson. I love it. Robyn and I've known each other for a while. She runs a podcast called Honey, I'm Homeschooling My Kids, but that's not the main reason I have her on the show. We want to go from within because Robyn is a really, really deep, very cool person. And she's got some amazing stories, lived a crazy life. And she's changing the framework of schooling as a side effect of that. And so welcome to the show, Robyn. Super pumped to have you.
Thanks. I'm super excited to be here.
That's awesome. So without getting too fluffy out of the gate, why don't we...
You're never fluff.
we talked a little preliminary. I'm like, you're kind of that person that likes to talk about things that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
She's like, yes. I'm like, good. You're my tribe. Here we go. I think there's too many conversations not happening. And then everyone's lonely, depressed, and filled with anxiety. And I think there's just missing conversations that need to happen. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I know people, I think a lot of times people avoid having those conversations because it makes everyone uncomfortable.
Yes, that is literally what I do to people accidentally. I've
Make
gotten a lot better by them going, well, that was pleasantly uncomfortable, rather than like, that guy's pretty straight. I still accomplish it with niceties now. So Robyn, let's talk about this. We've known each other for, I don't know, 10 years or something. We have we've crossed paths on a common thread where me and you took a same mentoring course from our mentor, Phil McKernan. We weren't ever in the same one, different kind of group, but you and I had some common things that held us back. You know what I mean? Can you tell a little bit about just kind of a Cole's Notes, or not, to do whatever you want, but kind of like where you come from, what you're about, and how you grew up a little bit, and then, how you got to homeschooling kids. Just give a little chat, and then we can break down some of that stuff.
Okay, I'll try and condense it the best I can. And
like, just tell me everything about your life.
All right. And you can interrupt whenever you need.
Sure.
So
Can I interrupt now?
Yeah.
Okay, just practicing. Okay, let's go.
Okay. So I'm from Southern Alberta originally. I'm a mixed kid, and I think I'm mixed in very many ways. My dad's from Jamaica. My mom's from Lethbridge. I grew up most of my life in Lethbridge, although I didn't move there until I was 6 years old. So we traveled a lot as a family. We lived in many different places, Jamaica being one of them, Africa, the United States. So I am used to, I think I call myself mixed in appearance and in my culture and background, because I've always been mixed in the way that our cultures, our lifestyle has always been blended in so many different ways. My parents come from very different backgrounds. So that's always been, it's been different, I think, always for me. I grew up most of my schooling life in Canada. And I think I was always, looking back now, I see I've always been a little bit of a different kid. My parents were pretty religious, as you know. I grew up as Jehovah's Witness. My dad was very, very strict, not only because of religion, but also because of culture as well. He's, new immigrant to Canada. We grew up in a fairly predominantly white middle-class city. And so I've always been kind of the different person in so many ways, right? I think even as a teenager, when my kids were wanting, or when my friends were wanting to start families or talking about the grand weddings and things that they wanted to have, they would laugh, because they'd always say, you're never going to get married, because I thought I would say, yeah, I will, but not now. Like, I've got so many things I need to do in my life. I want to travel. I'm not going to stay here. Exactly. I'm going to go out and see the world and see different things. And so that's always, I think I've always
culturally, they thought marriage was the goal, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's the path in a way. I think it's still the path here for so many. You grow up, you go to school, you get married, you start a family, two and a half kids or whatever, however they term it. You buy a house, you buy your vehicles, and you live in the suburbs, and
And then
you
you get your
don't.
rental property, and then you get your lake lot, and then you
Exactly.
retire, then you
Yeah.
RV, you go to Florida, or you go to, yeah, it's
Exactly.
interesting. It's interesting how we think we are living our own life.
Yes. Yes.
It's
That's right.
one of the most fascinating things I think about. It's like even what I do, is this like my own thinking? Is it me? Like I always challenge that, always.
But yes. And that is the biggest thing that I think, and that has been my biggest question the last couple of years. And, and that brings us as well to, I'll speed it up as well to where I am married and have a family. And probably about 8 to 7 years ago, my husband and I were living in Edmonton, as you know, we knew you
Mhm.
then. And we were living that life. We had bought a
Mm.
house, we had our two kids, we both worked, we were trying to save money to buy a bigger house so that we could keep our other house as a rental property, to get a nicer, newer cars, all that sort of stuff, right? But we got to the point where we realized that we were living this life that wasn't our life, basically, and we weren't happy about it. We wanted something different, and we needed something different. And that's when, our paths crossed, because my
Mhm.
husband was in the mastermind group in Everest with you and,
Yep.
Philip McKernan's group. And I started doing one a little bit later. But we got to the point where we realized, where before we started our family, we had all these dreams and desires and hopes and things that we wanted to do. But somewhere along the way in that path, or in that, monotony in a way, we had
Mhm.
stopped talking about all those things. We had lost our way, and we
Mhm.
wanted to get back to it. And we realized, for me, I had a job that I really enjoyed my work. I worked for a private school. Our kids went to that school. It worked really well, but I was extremely busy with work. It wasn't just the school hours, it was evenings, weekends. If I was at home, I was thinking about work. I was never really present. And it came to a point where one day I realized my kids were quickly, they were changing and growing, and I seemed to be missing it, even though
Mhm.
we were in the same home. I get home and quickly take them to soccer or take them to dance, and they have to have dinner. And then it's, you got to put them to bed so they can get up for school in the morning. And then you rush out the
Yeah.
door. The weekends, it's the same. It's whatever, soccer, whatever else they're doing, getting groceries, cleaning up. And then before you know it, it's like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to do nothing all Sunday,
Totally. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
That's probably most people's lives right there.
yeah, it is. And we realized that, we had lost the dreams of what we wanted to do. I had become a parent where, where was the time? I just wasn't fun, whereas the model that they were seeing was someone who works and is never really there. When they are there, I just want to kind of lay on the couch and not do
Yeah.
too much, right?
Yeah.
And for Xander, he was going through changes where he really was, he was starting to write, following
That's right.
something that he had as, a secret desire that he
Hidden
had
in his
stamped
heart. I
down.
remember that. He used to do
Totally.
newsletters for the entire family. I was in the
Yes.
moment. I never forget
Yeah,
that
you were
moment.
there.
He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
be a real estate agent, and I'm going to get going on that. He's like, yeah, but, and then it was amazing how that was uncovered. And I remember the moment where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've done a family newsletter. I write for everyone. I've got, and he just went like lit up like a light bulb.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like,
That was what he
and,
wanted to do.
and he's still writing today, right?
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
is. And so we realized that if we were just putting off, like, oh, when we have this amount of money, we'll do this. And when
Yeah.
we are at this point, we're going to do this. And we realized that if we don't start doing it, we're never going to do it. Our kids will be grown and out of the house. They'll have
Yeah.
grandkids.
Interesting.
The biggest thing we wanted to do was travel, because we had
That's
traveled
right.
so
That's
much when
right.
we were younger.
You guys traveled together into Korea, didn't you? Without kids, like you didn't have kids. You were dating.
Oh, yeah, we traveled to the South Pacific, to Australia, to New Zealand, through Asia. Yeah, we lived in Korea, we lived in China, Thailand, Cambodia. We had been Montreal. We had been all over
Yeah.
traveling
So
together
cool.
before we were married and after. And
Mm.
it was something that was such a great experience for us. We always talked about wanting to share that with our kids.
To
And
live
it
that
was,
crazy traveling style
yeah.
lifestyle. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and what you learn about yourself. And we felt it was
So
something we wanted to share.
so then you're in Edmonton, and now you've lived this. So I'm getting a hold of this now, because it's like, first of all, you meet, your basis of your relationship is travel. Like it sounds
Yeah.
like this was where the foundations of your relationship was built in this adventure and this travel. How was your relationship when you had kids and started not doing that? And then was it like, what did that like, just wonder how that relationship helped that happen when you start worrying about security, worrying about making sure we build our nest egg, and you start getting into what we're supposed to do. Did that have an effect on your personal relationship with Xander?
Of course it did. Totally. Because we put our priority in those other things. So our relationship becomes stagnant, right? It stops growing. And we weren't present in our relationship with each other. And we were worrying about everything else. So it completely affected our relationship. And that was one of the things that we realized that we wanted to change. You know, we did get to a point where we even thought, you know, is this really working for us anymore? This marriage?
Divorce.
Yeah. Should we continue?
Was it a real possibility?
Yeah, we talked about maybe it's better that we go our separate ways and see if that will actually be better for us. But
that's amazing how two people that loved each other, living this crazy adventure, starts doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be getting saved, make sure your kids are in there, get them educated, get your rental property. And at the end of the day, the very thing, their whole foundation you're built on is like, maybe it doesn't work. Like, it just seems like, I wonder if this is happening to how many people?
Oh, I think to so many people. So many people. What
did you have to do to get back to having a little fire in your life, to having happiness and not being stagnant? What are some of the things that you had to do to shift that? I think the listeners are sitting there going, that's my life. Like, what would we tell them? You know, how do we do that?
Well, first we had to recognize that we wanted a change. It was the biggest thing, and that we wanted to do something about it, and that we're going to do something about it. It took a lot of late night conversations, night conversations about being really honest, even getting to the point of, you know, is this relationship even working for us? We had never talked like that before.
Yeah.
And us being completely honest, realizing that we're both at the point where we were questioning whether it would, and then saying, you know, maybe we should look at something else. You know, and after many honest conversations again of opening up about how we're feeling and our fears, our hopes, our frustrations, our disappointments, the biggest thing is, you know, I think fear is a big thing, but we realized that we still also had enough love for each other that we wanted to try and, and make it work. And the other thing as well is, you know, we decided to start just doing some of those things that we wanted to do instead of waiting. And so that
even if it didn't make sense, like did it make sense financially to do it?
Not really.
that's the point I wanted you to make, because I think that it actually is one of my biggest frustrations. It's like, I can't afford it. Like, how many times did I pay my mentor when I couldn't afford it? Yeah. Probably at least out of the 8 years, probably at least 6 of those years. It was like, holy shit, I'm going to do this. I remember him giving me a deal as a Ben, pay like, we're talking like $12,000 a year, right? We're talking and I couldn't afford it and I still did it. And we work it out. Like, there's something that happens. Like, I think you're right. We delay, and someday we're going to do the things we want to do. And I don't know if there's another system where you just do it and it somehow works out. That doesn't make sense, but it has worked out like that.
Yeah, it has. And that thing is someday it might never come, right? Our time here on this earth is not forever.
So quick.
It's limited. You know, that someday might, you know, it might be tomorrow. We don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And I know for us, Xander was the one who brought the idea to me. I was driving back to Edmonton with the kids from visiting my mom, and he had called, and, you know, were talking about a few things that were happening, and he had said, why don't we go to Jamaica? And I was like, yeah, we can go to Jamaica, you know, we'll go for it. And he's like, no, why don't we
live there?
Move there for a little while. And at first I was like, no way, you know, he's more of the big ideas guy, and I'm more of the, okay, let's work this out. Let's look at our pros and cons kind of person. And in our relationship anyways. And I immediately said, no, that's just crazy. We're not going to do that. Like,
why would you say no so quick? Like, why the reaction of no? Like, that's where you're from. That I think your dad lived there. It wasn't that hard to do if you were moving somewhere else without connections. So what was the no? What was the quick no?
Because it seems so different from what we were doing. And, you know, the whole paying off our house, you know, working towards buying another house, you know, all of that, those other things, our life that was set
so you
in
had
Canada.
A plan. You had a plan.
It wasn't,
It's funny, the marriage
wasn't according to plan.
the marriage is on the rocks. We've lost all of our fire. We're really world travelers, but we have a plan. that we need to stick with. I
Gotta
say
stick to the plan.
sarcastically with massive respect, because I think that's the story. Everyone, they get stuck with a plan. Like, oh, that's my plan. It's just really interesting. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's interesting how that plan, we get attached to this idea.
Yeah, absolutely. We do get attached to it. And it wasn't according to plan. And so I therefore disagreed with it. And,
Yeah.
you know, he worked on me for sure
I could just see it.
until I was agreeable. And then, you know, then I realized, I'm like, you know, the thing is if we don't do it, we'll look back and say, you know, what would have happened if we had just tried?
Yeah,
going
that
to
thought of
Jamaica?
regret, right?
Yeah.
Did
And
he
the
buy
other thing,
did he buy like Jamaican sheets and pillows, and just you came home and it's like
no.
there's a down comforter with a Jamaican flag on it? Like,
No,
okay.
we had all that already. So he didn't buy all
Oh
that,
my
right?
goodness.
But he just, you know, kept bringing it up and asking why we shouldn't do it. And,
Yeah.
you know, the other thing is, it's like, he said, you know, if it doesn't work out, we can always just come back home.
I know. And that's
You know,
totally.
if it doesn't work out, it's okay. We can just come back to this life. You know,
Yeah.
this life it's not going to move. Essentially, it's going to stay where it is. And I thought, you know, that's true. We can, you know, it's not the end of the world. So let's try it. So we thought, we'll go for 6 months. We'll stay with my dad.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have family there, so it'll be a lot easier. We will rent our house out. We put all our stuff in storage. You know, we let everyone know that we would be going to Jamaica. And yeah, we got our plane tickets and we headed out to the island. And on top of that is, because the kids were in school, my oldest, Ronan, was in grade 1 and my daughter was in junior kindergarten. She was only 3. So we said, well, the easiest thing to do is we'll homeschool them, because
why not?
Why not?
Whatever.
Exactly.
They're young. You could easily justify it in your head, like, big deal. They're young. I could just see it happening. Like, what's the risk really? What are they learning? I got 1 + 1 = 2. I can bang that out.
Exactly. And then we also thought, if we have to, we can put them in school in Jamaica if it wasn't working out as well, right? So
cool.
That's what we'll do. And the school was great. They supported it. We thought it'll be for half a year. We'll be back.
No big deal. And you at the time were working at the school. Didn't you have to leave that job? Like so it's a private school. What was your role? Was like was what, like the marketing, PR, communications person?
I was communications and admissions. Yeah. And PR. That's right. Yeah. So I took a leave of absence from work. I said, I'll be gone for a couple months. I'm going to take a leave of absence and then we'll be back. Yeah.
Yeah. And now let's fast forward. So you came back after 6 months?
Yeah, no, it's over 6 years later.
6 years later, haven't been back to your job. You're still homeschooling your kids.
Still
crazy.
Yeah.
Let's hear about it.
We went from Jamaica to South Korea, and then from South Korea to Northern Alberta. And then we've had a few trips in between, but that's where we are now. And, you know, it's one of those things that out of it, we completely adjusted our life. You know, we ended up selling the house.
Yes, you did.
You were the realtor on it.
I think one of my buyers have that right now.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. We ended up selling the house. We had already sold a car. We decided, because you downsize, right? You know, you don't need all the stuff. We lived out of a suitcase. That's
how fun.
Yeah, it was very freeing, right?
Yeah.
And it gave us the freedom. And the thing was, what happened as well with homeschooling is that I realized as time went on that this homeschooling thing was amazing. I had no idea. And really the biggest thing about homeschooling that was so exciting, that we all loved as a family, was that it was not about the books and the learning and the 1 + 1. It was about experiencing life together. And it was about building our relationship and our connection and our communication. And I slowly began to realize that that's what homeschooling was all about. And those, few homeschooling families that I did know before, it suddenly was like, oh, right, the light came on. They would tell me about these things before, and I would see how their family was kind of different. But now it was starting to come together that, the things, really what was driving homeschool was your values, your love, and your relationship, your connection. And what happened with our learning is that I started as well with homeschooling to question all of those old beliefs that I used to have about how we should live our life, how our kids learn, what we should do with our kids, how we structure our days, how our kids learn. All of that started to shift for me because I started seeing it shift in our life. So, I started out with homeschooling where I copied, again, just copying the
For
life
sure.
that we had before.
Like you're talking about copying the structure of a school.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Set the alarm. We'll do math for this time. We'll do reading for this time. We'll do writing. And it worked for a bit because that's what the kids were used to. So it was easy to transition. But then we would do things like we would spend every afternoon at the beach. We would be outside. We would take time off to go and visit family on the other side of the island. And what I saw happening was that those times at the beach were those times where those learning connections were made. The times with the family, with their great aunties and their cousins and extended family, all of the things that they were learning from those things that they were actually doing in life, those are the things that were sticking. And all of those other schooly connections, that's when those connections were happening. That's when their learning was solidified. And the conversations we were having because of it completely changed. How they saw life and were experiencing life. I realized that, it's this natural learning process, that this is always how kids are. And this is how they're seeing the world. But the difference is we try and change that to make them into little adults because we don't see that way anymore, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, you got to get rid of it. The world's tough. You got to get ready.
Yeah, you got to work hard. No, you just got to put your head down into the books. You just got to struggle and push through it. And maybe you're not good at it, but maybe just try harder. Or you know what? Yeah, you're just not this kind of person. Or we'll try this. Or or you're not measuring up to this. And no, you didn't get a 95%. What was wrong with you?
What's crazy, Robyn, is that it's like I interviewed who was it? I think I interviewed Tucker Max the other day. His episode even isn't out yet. But I was do some research and just watched an episode, and he says he became a lawyer, and he says, he goes, school's easy. So we're talking an academic, okay? We're not talking a guy like myself. I had no clue how to figure out how to do school. I was so creative and ADD and all this other stuff, no memory. And so you just hear this Tucker Max say he, once I learned school, it's easy. I just went and got my degree, got my law degree, no big deal. It's because once the academic figures out how to hack it, it's not learning. Yeah. So even the guys that are getting 80s and 90s aren't learning.
No.
Like compared
you're studying for the exam or you're studying for the test.
He goes, once you hack the exam, but once you figured it out, it's easy. And I'm like, wow. So the guys that are, even the school, the people that they go, that's our shining star, are they actually learning? Or they just learn how to hack the system?
Yeah, it's memorization so much more, right?
I get mad about it. Think of it.
Yeah, if you ask most kids that are studying for a test, okay, say you have an exam here, one of your kids in his exam at the end of the week, and they're cramming and they're doing well, and oh my God, they came home and they got 95%. That's great. Yeah. Wait 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Then ask them that test. Ask them to show you in life. How would you apply those science concepts that you just learned? Or what about all of this that on your test that you were just doing? Could you repeat it? So many times kids can't duplicate that again.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's like, all those hours that we spend in the structured schedule, what's really going on, right? And that's what I started to see and started to question. And then it's like, but we all do this and we think it's the right way. Well,
there's no other way, right? It takes people like me and you who are willing to talk about the stuff that no one wants to talk about because it makes everyone uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking, if you don't mind, I want to share a story in regards to, and I'd like to ask you a question after the story. It's my son was in grade 3 and he's a lot like me. He's like a mini me. That's rock. Mm-hmm. And so he's in school, socially at school, he's amazing. Okay. Like he's got friends and all this stuff, but they couldn't get his reading together. They just couldn't figure it out. Like he was in class and now they're wondering what he's doing. He's not comprehending. So he's one of those guys. Now I'm very thankful where school is today because they actually recognize that as a different learning thing, not just like, well, figure it out, like read more. So they did a bunch of tests on him, which we had to approve. And I said, that's fine, but there's no way we need to hurt his confidence or nothing. Like, we're never going to be like, yeah, you're dumb. Can't make him feel that way. But so they checked him out and they're like, yeah, at his very highest effort, he'll probably be like a 2 out of 10 when it comes to academics or something. I'm like, okay, that's fair, whatever. But then like we tried everything. Like we tried reading, we tried repetition. We tried, they got him a helper to help him read. But then what happened was, what was crazy is I put him into hockey. I put him into hockey And he finally found his confidence. He found his thing. He found something to hold on to, his brotherhood, his community, and he started scoring some goals. And all of a sudden, he was a hockey player. Then what happened was about 2 months after we put him into hockey, we're not even like, and the teacher calls us, goes, "What'd you guys do? Like, what did you do?" And it was like, well, I don't know, like his reading level went up 3 times.
Wow.
We're like, what the heck? Like, and I'm like, I put him into hockey, and I went, ding, ding, ding. Shit, we got this all freaking backwards.
Yeah.
We're doing it wrong. So my thinking is from within everything. Cause as soon as I raise my own confidence, man, I get successful.
Absolutely.
So I think, what if we leaned into that? Like, tell me a little bit about how homeschooling and personal value tie together. Like, is that part of it?
Oh yeah, it's completely part of it. Personal value drives your homeschooling, right? It drives your daily life, because, personal value, you're talking about personal worth and personal love and self-acceptance and confidence and self-knowing. If that's not there, if you want to think about, and that rock is a perfect example, your academic learning is it's not going to really happen. It's not going to stick. No. But if you think about if you're building and working and supporting personal value, personal worth, confidence, understanding and knowing yourself, that's something that's going to carry you on forever. No matter how old you are. The younger you start working with that, the more it's going to build as you get older. And then what happens is when you come up against something of like, I don't know how to do this, you're going to say, but you know what? I know ways that I can learn how to do this, or I can do it. I can do it. I can just, maybe it's not going to work for this way, but let me try this. Let me ask this person. Let me take a bit more time doing it. Do I have to figure out in a month? No, I don't. I can take a year to do this or longer. And it's approaching it where it's how you're going to learn. You feel confident about how you're going to learn and that you're able to do that independently as well. You're not relying on someone else to do it for you. So it's not like I don't have the teacher, so I can't learn it right now.
So that's victim mode, Robyn. Yeah. That's a victim, because if I need you to help me and I'm screwed without you, I feel like it's your fault. Like it almost takes away the ability to blame someone if you have to do it on your own.
That's completely it. And I think that's what happens for many times, especially as kids get older, for homeschooling, it gets difficult because it's very much about personal responsibility as well, right? And with schooling, if you think so many times when things don't work, we blame the teacher, we blame the school, we blame the principal, we blame all the other things because we've lost our power in our learning and education.
Isn't that something? So you're almost forced to blame them. Yeah. Because they take away the power and then we're victims of the school systems. Yeah. Either they're a win or it's their fault, but we have a little bit more power than that now with this there's a movement of homeschooling. Holy crap. Yeah. My brother-in-law has 3 kids, straight out homeschools them the whole way through. But I got to tell you the honest truth. I've had a lot of judgment around it. Like when I first started seeing it, not judgment around like, this is just not even my own beliefs. It's stuff I've had to unwind, but the whole idea about like, you're going to teach your kids. And then what's this unschooling? Like, okay, so you're just going to, it's just self-directed. We throw some books on the coffee table and we see which ones they go to. Once they get it, and it's the tractor book, we go see tractors. I'm thinking like, holy shit, they can't freaking read. Like they can't and I'm about 90% okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm 10% going, well, let's see what happens. Because really like I think it might depend on the parent. It might depend on a few other things as well. But then I really do believe it because the school did not work for me. I self-learned everything I know. And I'm crazy confident because of it. So it's kind of like this too. That's why 90% I'm like not all in, but that's just my truth. But then because I've had to work it out, I was like, what the heck's going on here? Yeah. But I don't like the school system at all. Like I don't like how it's done. It's built to get a job. They're very limited in how they can even teach. It's only academics. 90% of things are academics unless you can get a weird private school and customize completely. But so like you see what I mean? Like you have this whole preconceived idea and look at it. Have you wrestled with the judgment that comes your way?
Oh yeah. You as a homeschooler, you get judgment all the time. Absolutely. And I think for me, because I'm a lot more vocal about it, I have my podcast. I've been working in education for a long time as well. I definitely get a lot of it. It's like kind of like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Sometimes,
But
or
that's because they're
why,
challenging stuff. Yeah.
yeah, why are you not following the rules? Again, like
Yeah.
why are you unschooling? Like we have all these great schools. We live in Alberta. Look at what we've provided. Look what our
Yeah.
government provides us. Why are you not sending your kids to school? Why aren't you following the curriculum? We have got a great education. It's the best in the world.
Yeah.
What's really so wrong with this? I think people get defensive, right? Because it's like,
But
you're
why
not,
though? Because they don't believe it. You know why? Because they don't
be,
believe it either.
because the existence of it questions their value system and beliefs.
Totally.
And what they're living in life, right?
Somehow
So
it's a
like,
mirror on themselves.
it is. That's right. And the thing is, like, the whole thing about unschooling, I think really is just not following the traditional form of schooling. Unschooling can be different things for different families. Really, it's finding what works for your family. So sometimes it might be a bit of a traditional class thrown in there, but also at the same time, it's really like, the tractor example actually is a great example. So you have all these books on the table and your child is like hockey. Your child is like, tractors, look at this picture. And you're like, oh, can you read it to me? So you sit down and you read the tractor book with them. You talk about the tractors. You talk about the colors. You talk about how they go. And then their excitement about tractors grows. So what are you going to do? Yeah, let's go check some tractors out. Let's go ride on some tractors. Let's see how they work. Let's see how they're built. Where do they come from? Oh, this one was built in Germany. Where's Germany? Let's go find it on a map. Do you know what Germany? Why does it? Why do these names sound funny of these cities? Because they speak German there. What's German? Let's listen to the German language. What kind of food do they eat? The same foods as us, Dad? No, they don't. They eat this and this. Well, why don't we make some one day? Let's have a German day where we make all German food in the kitchen. Why don't you? Let's make this together. So that's how it. Taking it from the interest of your child and following their lead and their interest. Everything builds on that. So that's why building on that passion and then therefore that confidence. And it's also like, oh, you're really interested in what I'm in. It's not like, oh, this is a stupid book. Let's read something harder. It's like, well, why? This is what I like, though. Is it not good enough?
Yeah. See, that's
there's so many elements that go into it that, following it's that honoring your child and honoring, what is important or, what they value and, choices that they're making as well. That also comes into it. It's, you're not, it's saying that, what you want to do and what you're interested in, it's still important. And we can take time to do that as well.
And it's funny, if we really believe that self-worth, confidence, self-belief was important, and if it was a high value, then this is what's happening. Like, you're literally letting them have a voice. They're deciding, they're building their life. They're believing in themselves. What they say is important. All the things that we've been saying, I grew up with, go sit at the kids' table.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like, I'm secondary until I'm an adult. And when I'm an adult, I'll be a controller.
Yeah,
like it's just like this weird,
because that's what you
breaking down.
So that's what you do, right?
Yeah, you do. So the one thing I think we actually think about homeschooling, we tried it once, but it was really a bad time for us to do that. I was insane when I was working 20 hours a day. We had two little babies we had like 4 kids. Like, it was just crazy. We're like, yeah, let's do it. And it was a fail. It was a relationship with Renee and I's relationship wasn't good. There's a lot of different things around the whole idea. And then we didn't know what we were doing. We did it. We did kind of like Renee was struggle with it. And eventually we put him back into school, but that for mental, for our own mental sake, it wasn't a schooling thing. But I do think about it because I definitely am a crazy guy. I would go live in Asia. I would do all kinds of crazy stuff just like you. But we have a huge family and we're thinking, well, the real, like, school limits us completely, but the thing is, we think about it and we've talked to the kids, like, there's a real social element that they really get. And Jack, who's in junior high, is taking construction. He's taking like metal work. Like, there's some really neat things in school that I've actually going, wow, get through all the academic stuff. And there's a ton, there's auto body. There's so many different opportunities in school that I'm going, and Jack loves it, but he's not an academic. but he knows already what he wants because me and him have talked, and I think his confidence is through the roof. And it's funny because he goes, I don't care if I get 50% on that one. I just got to pass that one. Not interested. So we kind of do that. I'm like, yep, no problem. I never have once asked to see the report cards. Never once in my entire life. I literally don't care. And I don't want to celebrate it. If my son comes and goes at 90% on my test, I'm like, oh, cool. Let's see it. Like, awesome. What'd you learn? It's just a conversation.
Yeah. It's not.
Most of my kids are like 50 to 60% because I don't care.
Yeah.
But what about the social element? I have some answers myself. I know things go on, but the thing is, I kind of think that these are one of the preconceived ideas about homeschooling.
Like the kids don't get socialized.
That's right. It's like, oh, there's that homeschooled kid over there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's that weird unsocialized homeschool.
Yeah, that's right. Like, oh my goodness, he doesn't know how to talk. But so what's your thought around that?
Well, it's interesting because, there is. I mean, and that's a whole other thing, right? It's set up around the social structure. So, I mean, there's a few different things with it. One, homeschooling is growing like crazy. There's so many homeschoolers that really it is, again, about your tribe and your community. So, there's so many chances to, especially with the internet and social media, to connect with other homeschoolers and other kids and other families so that you can create that social element where the kids can be together if that's what you really want. You can always recreate that, right?
Yeah.
Within your family and friends and things like that. That offers the opportunity. Some homeschoolers, question that. They kind of throw it back and they say, okay, that's fine. The kids are gone, 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day, whatever, with other kids, in a confined area, kids who, really are the biggest influence around them.
Yeah.
And that too, they spend most of their waking hours with, or other kids who sometimes, they are just learning life. They are just learning personal values or don't know anything about personal values. They're coming from circumstances where they're just really trying to sort themselves out. You have all varying degrees and little experience in life as well. So, the biggest influence on your kids are those other kids who are struggling as well, right? Who are just learning and just experiencing life. So, it's, how much of the socialization do you really want to happen? Because that really is the form of it.
And I think you're polishing it really nicely.
I am polishing it.
I know you are. The reality is people are saying there's drugs in school, there's bad kids in school, and I don't want my kids to be. And I'm sitting there thinking, you have no self-worth. You're living a life that you don't want to live. You're the parent of this kid. Maybe it's good to get away from you so they can find some independence.
Yeah.
There's two sides to the whole thing. Like, I'm going to raise my kid. Great. Do you like yourself? Well, not really.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not like.
But that's true. I think sometimes, and that's the thing. I don't think homeschooling is for everybody. I think school definitely serves a purpose for sure. And I think it works for some better than it works for others. I just think we also have to be very clear on what that purpose is for yourself, for your kids, and for the society in general, and really understand what that is going into school. Because, there's a lot of things in the structure of schooling that aren't great for kids. Totally. They say there's rampant bullying, and I know people are trying to address it and trying to work through it, but adults bully each other. The teacher that they're with, they're struggling. Like they have things are going on in their life that they're barely coping with, and then they're coming to the classroom and just trying to handle a classroom of 30 kids. Right? Yeah, if you ask most teachers, it's like when you have a huge classroom, most part of your time is discipline, is trying to just keep it under control. In order and get to that point where they give you have to be here by the end of the year.
The curriculum, pace, and all that crap. Yeah.
So you're like, that's your biggest stressor. It's not like creating curiosity and engagement and better community with the kids and get them talking and being, and the self and the personal value. That's the last thing that you're worrying about.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
All other things going on in school. So I think, the other opportunities that the kids like that Jack is doing, I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. And if he's enjoying it and you guys.
It's literally why he likes school. Like, it's all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all the other stuff. So the one thing I think is, I love that you said, I wrote it down and I'm like, it says experience life together. I think that is like the coolest way I've heard homeschooling described in a very short, easy, like we're just experiencing life together. And like, what a cool concept, because it's all broken families and not much time, TV, you're not really like you're truly experiencing life together. I love that. I love that you said that. I want to chat with you a little bit on religion a bit, because this is one of those topics that people don't talk about. Me and you have, like, I went through my own journey of realizing that if I was born in a different country, I would have a different religion. And it was like this little mini awakening going, oh, how do I, but my way is the right way and everyone else's is the wrong way. And I'm like, it was like so I started like asking everyone, like, what do you believe? What do you believe? And I just went through my whole thing, it was years ago, to really find out, like, what do I really believe? I know I'm supposed to believe this. What I always say, I had to risk going to hell to find out what I believe. Because that's what kept me, like, imagine growing up in a Christian family saying, oh, by the way, if you don't accept Jesus and his gift of life, you are going to be sent to a place of burning fire. You're a little kid listening to this, that you're going to burn for the rest of eternity. So do you want to accept Jesus? Like, you're just actually, I broke it down, and really that's like the fear of that is so scary. So that's why I said I have to risk hell to question it. And so I remember having a conversation with you, and that's why I want to talk about it, because you actually helped me with this little awareness, because you grew up Jehovah's Witness, which in my world is totally of the devil. From where I grew up, it's the devil, because it's not Christianity, so it's a devil. Like, if it's not God, it's the devil. It's a very simple, clear thing. And we grew up in the Pentecostal, so it's like the raising the hand, speaking in tongues. And then you told me one time, you're like, do you know what? We were having this religious conversation, and you said, like, Ben, did you know that we thought the speaking in tongues is actually the devil?
The devil. Yeah.
And I'm like, who the F is right? Like, you just go through this process. I'm like, okay, so you think what we think is this manifestation of God's power through someone. You're thinking that's the devil. I think you're the devil. How that? Like,
who's right?
Like, and why are we not talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, why are we, like, there's millions and millions of people doing all these different things. They all think they're right. Like, no one thinks about that.
Yeah, because we're all just stuck on being right, really, that I think we put that over importance of connection, right? And really understanding the truth and things. And it's power scared as well too. Yeah, it's fear and power.
Scared. Like, what was it like growing up? Like, how did the religious upbringing affect you? And do you still follow it today, or like, where are you at?
I don't follow it today. I was never baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. For Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't baptize as an infant. They believe that you should be old enough to make it as a conscious choice on your own to choose. And I think is great.
I respect that.
Yeah, totally respect that. Not a lot of religions do that. So they feel that you have to make the personal choice.
Yeah.
So
dedication to God and the baptism of a child in the Catholic Church, like, all that stuff.
Yeah. They believe it's one thing to be raised in as a family but you have to make the choice on your own. So I never did make that choice in the end. Yeah. I was raised in it until I was about a teenager. It's funny because now, there were a lot of personal hurts, I think, that I experienced as well, because, we had, on both sides of my family were Jehovah's Witnesses, and we had family members that were kicked out as well because they do disassociation,
excommunications, Mormon, disassociation. Like, you go to all of them, they've got this weird way of like, if you are not following us, you're out. Like,
you're
it's
out.
scary. Like, it's just like, cults are extreme like that too. It's just like almost like the same patterns,
Yeah.
So you had family members cut out.
Yeah, we did. And I think, that in itself causes a lot of dysfunction, right? And it causes a lot of, hurt as well. Yeah. And, that affected our family quite a bit. And so, I think from, the beginning of why I had a cousin who I was very close to, who, her family ended up leaving. And so we never, that was it. That was the end of our relationship. Yeah, I lost a very, very good friend. And so I always questioned why, if God is love, why are we not practicing love and forgiveness? And so, but, and it's also very strict. There are certain things that they don't want you to do and that I always wanted to do. So, I think I started to, as a teenager, even as well, kind of going against things, wanting to try things and going against things.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it now as an adult, as a 41-year-old, a bit differently, right? I see how religion creates community for so many people that need that community.
So true.
Right?
That is
That sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And knowing that you can lean on somebody and trust somebody, and when you need that help, that they're there.
Yes.
And there's so many and usually you choose a religion where you have those similarities and those likenesses and those similarities and beliefs. And so, it forms that connection, which I think is very important, that many don't have anymore.
That's so true.
Yeah. And I see that as, especially for like my dad, for example, who was new to Canada, who only knew our family, for so many people like that as well, it creates that sense of belonging and community that they might not get otherwise. So I think that was very important, and it was important for our family as well.
Yeah.
The judgment and the fear is where, and therefore you're not yourself. You pretend and you follow things that you wouldn't necessarily, do. And follow that.
It's the dark side of it, because it's not a healthy, like it's the community that says be you, be yourself, we accept you, we love unconditionally. That's just not true.
Yeah,
because it's like, as long as you're this, you are our community.
Yeah,
but the depth of connection just isn't there. So I guess from a surface level, you have your like-mindedness, you are part of a community, but the moment that you step a little bit aside, whether it's officially excommunicated or like, I know people, I give you names of people that grew up in the church that now is not following the same methods. I know their best friends are like, hey, how you doing? Well, I can't get too close to them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's still there. So that's the thing, right? So I'm with you. Like, community is amazing and having that, but then there's the dark side of it. Like, is it really a community?
Yeah, absolutely. Where you're not actually, you don't have a chance to be honest and real and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because when you do question, then it's like, no, you're not supposed to be asking those questions.
Have faith and just trust God. Well, that stuff is like just crazy to me. It's maddening, because it's almost like, well, I want to ask a question. Just don't ask a question. It's so threatening. I just really believe they don't believe in what they're saying. It's I believe 90% of people that follow the religion don't believe it.
Yeah, I agree.
I really don't. Like, if you just think about how people react when someone, watch a reaction when someone is in a lie. It's the most fascinating thing when you think of religion, because someone comes up to you and says, I think, did you steal that thing? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. And if you think I did, I am not a thief. Blah, right? There's this reaction. Mm-hmm. Someone comes up to someone that's honest. Did you steal that? No, I didn't. And so the reaction reminds me of a liar.
Yeah.
The reaction reminds me of someone defending a belief that's not true.
Yeah.
And so it's just so clear to me. I'm like, you don't believe. Mm-hmm. And you want me to believe the bullshit thing that you don't believe. If you really believed it, I might be interested. Yeah. But at a soul, as an absolute spirit level, I know you don't believe.
Yeah.
Like, I watch it in people, but then it shakes their core to think of that.
Yeah, that's
absolute core. Because if that's not fully what you believe, where are you? Holy crap.
Yeah. And that's the scary thing, right? That's the scary thing. I remember a friend of mine who also was raised as Jehovah's Witness, and she no longer is. And she had said to me that, she had a conversation with her parents one time, and her mom or her dad had finally said, well, because she was asking about certain things, like, do you really believe this? And her sister had also been kicked out as well, because her sister had questioned a few things, I guess a little bit too much. So then, she had left. But she said, honey, I don't believe all of that.
And she was in it.
Yeah. And she said, we were a young family, and, that's what she said. There was others that were helping us. So, here we are, but no, we don't believe everything. And that was the same for her. She said, but how can you be so adamant in these convictions and even the way that you're treating me and my sister when you don't fully believe it?
That's
You're
insanity.
choosing, that is insanity. And it's choosing your blood, your family relationships. It's choosing that religion or those beliefs over that, because essentially that's what's happening, right?
And I think about the guys that bombed the 9/11, okay, in the name of God.
Yeah.
And everyone would agree to us that that's effed up. Okay. That's not true. The question is what they believe to the point where they blow their freaking buildings up, kill as many people to celebrate that, to get whatever happens in heaven after. They believed that. What in my life do I believe with conviction that's my thing that I need to let go of that's not true?
Exactly.
If they have that much conviction.
Completely. It's and we're too scared to question it. It might not necessarily be that way. Yeah. And I mean, bringing it back to like even our homeschooling and learning, that's where some of the beliefs that I started to question, that I always just, this is what we do. This is how we're going to learn. This is how it should be. And then it was like,
But who built the program? Who told me that? Where does it come from? Is this like, and sure, there's some truth in it, but what do I believe? Like, what's wrong with that question? It's the most insane thing. If you just ask someone, go like, what do you believe? Like it's almost like that question just needs to be asked. Like people are very scared of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, bring it even for religion as a parent, then you have kids, right? And that's the other thing is like, so many people say, well, I went back to church because I had kids. I felt that, faith was something that was important to instill into our family, into our values. And, and so therefore, a lot of people I know searched for different churches or places to belong to, but so it's like, it's again, that, and then but then that's also having the honest conversation with your kids as well. Why are we, why, what's important here? What does faith mean, for our family? What does God or whatever you want to call it mean, and how really the biggest thing is how does it reflect in your life and how you live your life? Because, and how does that influence your choices every single day? Do you have to go to church in order for that to happen? Can that be something again within that can influence you or that can drive you instead? It's a lot of conversations that are important to have because really it frames our life.
And that's the honesty that needs to happen between, first of all, you can't, like me and you went through a process of living a life that we were honest. And not in like that we're dishonest people, but we just lived a story that we told ourselves for years. I know that me and you share that because that's what Philip helps you unwind, which we actually probably help unwind in a lot of people now too. And just unwind the story that you're telling yourself. So then once you get honest, that's when you can have relationships with people. Because if you're not having an honest relationship with yourself at real truthful questions, they'll never have a real connection. I think that's where the kids are missing out on parents that aren't totally connected because they don't know how to connect with themselves. It's one of the biggest problems I see on the planet is that these parents are telling themselves a story. They're trying to convince everyone else of the story. They got to get their kid on board with the story rather than just having these conversations. Jack and I talk about all kinds of stuff. And I said, Jack, what would happen if you were born in the Middle East? I said, well, you'd probably be a Muslim.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then it scares my wife. Like what? Because you see that because she's still really Christian and we have this really cool relationship where we just accept each other for where we're at. But I definitely challenge her because she believes what I'm saying. And that kind of screws up a little bit. Like, well, it just kind of, but I talked to Jack and I said, did you know the word God, that word is a man-made word. We had to label whatever this is as something. So I have these conversations with him. I'm like, so what do you think? He goes, yeah, I can definitely feel something. There's definitely some real spiritual thing there. And I believe in it. But then we have some amazing conversations and it's really cool to have those conversations and let him believe what he's going to believe, which is so against religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like religion is this, don't look at the internet because you'll be steered away. I would remember as a kid is that it's almost like Satan is the greatest deceiver. So when you have that thought, as soon as someone and pride is where you fall and you can never be like God and all these things. And I feel like it's a way to keep the religion running because,
absolutely.
because
You got to keep your congregation strong and big, for sure.
And if you feel like it maybe makes sense, it's the devil.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like honey to your tongue or to your ears. And so there's a hard way to navigate through that when you think like, well, maybe I'm being deceived.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wrestled with. Like maybe the devil's working through me now.
Right.
Like,
am I evil? Am
I'm
I
the
wrong?
evil one. And because I'm deceived. Like that's insane. I know
and
that.
That's a huge thing to carry, feeling that you're the evil one.
Or maybe you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And how you're going to live your life and interact with everyone else around you when you think you are the badness, you are the evil.
Imagine.
Yeah.
So
it's so powerful. It's so consuming.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think the conversations we have are really cool here, Robyn. There's one thing that you're coming up here. You're actually going to be in Edmonton, May 28th, and you are going to be a speaker at an event that's very close to my heart. Our mentor has this movement across the nation going called the One Last Talk. And it's 15 minutes where you would give one talk. It's the last talk you'll ever give in your whole life. So that's going to be, this recording will be forever. So this is 2019, May 28th. And it looks like I may actually be a speaker as well.
Yeah.
And so that'll be kind of cool where we give our one last talk. Have you thought about that yet?
Have I thought about the talk? Yeah. I have quite a bit. I've had the point where I thought I had, I had an experience when we lived in Jamaica when I thought my life was going to be ending. Oh, wow. I had that point where I thought, is this it? Have I lived, how have I lived my life? Oh, wow. Is this going to be the end, like my last day? We actually had somebody who broke into our home on a Sunday morning, and it was just myself and my aunts and my kids that were at home. And I didn't know, he was there to rob us, but I didn't know, he had a weapon in his hand. He was in my bedroom. I was in bed on Sunday morning.
Holy crap.
Yeah, he showed up in my door, my bedroom door, and all of a sudden there was this man there. And, for a while, I didn't know if I was going to survive this, if I did, how I was going to survive it and what was going to happen. And I definitely had that, how has my life been? And have I lived the life that I, wanted to live? And I thought, my life has been good. And I didn't think, oh, it's been horrible and I wish I'd cheated. I thought it's been good, but I had this feeling of it's been okay.
And if you have to ask that question, that's something inside saying you haven't lived the life that you wanted to live. Like if that's the first question that's coming through your head, you're like, holy shit, I haven't done something. Yeah. Like you need to live. It's like, that's where that God relationship thing happens.
Absolutely.
There's that little voice inside says, hey, it's time to live.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's cool.
And we only have a certain amount of time. So yes, I have thought about it. I've thought about it quite a bit.
Cool.
We'll see if I share that story or where it goes, right? What happens with that. So
yeah, that's really cool. And it's kind of hometown in a it, right? Like
it is going back to the hood in Edmonton.
Going back to the Edmonton or the dark, the cold one. I don't know. It's definitely got some two sides to it, but anyways, I think we're going to wrap up there, Robyn. We've hit on some really interesting points. Truly happy that I've had you on the show, and I'm really excited to kind of see you again in May and share the stage. So
yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.